Have you ever gotten that feeling that underneath everything we're taught about history, about religion, about philosophy, that there's something more? A deeper story just waiting to be uncovered? Well, a man named Manly P. Hall spent his entire life on that exact idea. He was convinced that a single secret philosophy has been passed down for centuries, hidden right out in the open. So let's dive into his incredible work together and see if we can unlock what he called the secret teachings of the ages. Okay, just look at this. It's so complex, right? It's dense, it's mysterious, and you just know it's packed with meaning. This image right here, it's the perfect visual for the huge question Manly P. Hall is asking. What if all the great myths, all the ancient philosophies, all the world's religions, what if they weren't separate things at all? What if they were all just different dialects of one single secret language? A world of symbols, the hidden code. So to even begin to crack this thing open, we've got to start with the language itself. And the key, according to the ancient wise ones, isn't in words or books, not in the way we think of them. It's hidden in a world of symbols. So, what are we talking about when we say symbolism? Well, this is what's so fascinating. We're not just talking about clever little pictures humans made up. The idea here is that symbolism is the actual language of the universe itself. That everything in nature, a tree, a star, you, me, is a symbol for the divine idea behind it. Words can only take you so far. They hit a wall. Symbols, though, they can point to these huge cosmic truths that are way too big to fit into a sentence. And this quote really nails it. A symbol can both conceal and reveal. For the wise, the subject of the symbol is obvious, while for the ignorant masses, it is incomprehensible. Think about that. It's like the perfect code. If you don't know what you're looking for, a symbol is just a weird drawing or a myth you heard once. But if you have the key, if you're initiated, it opens up this whole world of meaning. It's a lock and a key all at the same time. It just depends on who's looking. And make no mistake, this was all done on purpose. This knowledge was hidden for a reason. The ancient sages were convinced that handing over this kind of power, this kind of deep cosmic knowledge to someone who wasn't ready for it, would be, well, a total disaster. So they built a kind of filter, a barrier that only true dedication and wisdom could get you through. It was all about protecting the secrets from being misused. Guardians of the secret, the school of secrets. So who were these people? Who were the guardians of all this? And how on earth did they keep this symbolic language alive for literally thousands of years? Well, the answer lies with some very secretive, very exclusive groups that we now call the mystery schools. Yeah, these weren't just some casual get-togethers. The mystery schools were the true source, the hidden spring from which basically all of ancient philosophy flowed. And they were dead serious about secrecy. We're talking oaths of silence, and if you broke that oath, it could literally cost you your life. They weren't there to teach you math or public speaking. They called themselves universities of the soul because their one and only goal was total spiritual transformation. So you might be thinking, if they were so important, why haven't I heard of them? Well, the simple answer is their secrecy worked perfectly. Over the centuries, their teachings got so wrapped up in the famous philosophers who taught them, like Plato, that people forgot where the ideas came from in the first place. We call it Platonism, right? But Hall's argument is that Plato was just the public face, an initiate sharing the teachings of his secret school. The source itself just vanished from public view. The myth of rebirth, decoding the universal myth. Okay, so we've got the language, symbols, and we've got the guardians, the mystery schools. Now let's actually try to decode something. We're going to start with one of the biggest, most universal myths you find everywhere in the ancient world, the story of the god who dies and is brought back to life. Check this out. In Egypt, you've got Osiris. In Samothrace, the Kabiri. In Phrygia, Attis and Adonis. And in Christianity, Jesus Christ. See the pattern? The names change, the cultures are different, but the core story is exactly the same. A divine figure is killed, or suffers, and then is resurrected into an even greater state. The ancient philosophers weren't writing history books here. They were using a story, a symbol. To them, the story of Osiris wasn't about a literal person. It was an allegory for the human soul, being murdered by ignorance and the physical world. And Plato, who we now know was an initiate, basically gives us the decoder ring with this quote. He says, "The body is the coffin of the soul." Whoa. So the death in these myths isn't about a physical body dying. It's a symbol for the pure divine soul descending into the tomb of a physical body. It's the spirit getting trapped in our material nature. So, in a weird paradoxical way, being born into this world is actually a kind of spiritual death. So if we put all the pieces together, this whole dying God myth is really a roadmap for the human soul. It's a 3-step process. Step 1, the soul descends. It enters the tomb of the body. Step 2, that divine spark gets slain, meaning it gets buried under all the distractions and illusions of the physical world. We forget who we really are. And then step 3, the resurrection. This is the big one. It's the soul being reborn, reawakened through wisdom and initiation. And it's not just the dying God myth. You see the same exact idea in other symbols, like the Orphic egg. So picture this. The egg itself is the cosmos, and inside is the philosopher's soul, trapped in the shell of their physical body. The serpent wrapped around it, that's the symbol for divine wisdom. Initiation is the moment that shell cracks open, and the person finally emerges. They're reborn from this undeveloped, embryonic state into a true spiritual life.
The great work within, the alchemical quest. Now, all this talk of rebirth and transformation, it leads us right into one of the most mysterious subjects of all, alchemy. And right away, we need to get something straight. We tend to think of it as a bunch of old guys trying to turn lead into gold. But for these philosophers, that wasn't the point at all. The real goal of alchemy was the transformation and perfection of the human soul.
And this image of the phoenix just says it all, doesn't it? The bird that rises from its own ashes, it's the perfect symbol for regeneration. That's the real goal of what alchemists called the great work. It had nothing to do with making physical gold. It was about burning away all the junk, all the impurities of your lower nature in the fire of spiritual discipline, so that you could be reborn as a perfected spiritual being. Okay, so what about the most famous piece of alchemical lore, the Philosopher's Stone? Well, forget everything you've seen in movies. It's not some magic rock that grants eternal life. The Philosopher's Stone is a symbol. It represents the final product of the great work. The stone is the perfected person, the human being who has totally transformed themselves, whose divine nature is just shining through them. It's not something you find, it's something you become. And this is where it all ties back together. That quote says, "The great work cannot be accomplished unless a person is reborn." So that whole dying God myth we just talked about, it isn't just a cool story. It's step 1, that spiritual rebirth, that philosophical resurrection. It's the absolute starting point for the alchemical quest. You have to be reborn before you can even begin the great work. So you might be wondering, okay, but how does working on my soul have anything to do with metals? Well, it all comes down to the most important rule in all of Hermetic philosophy. For what is below is one with what is above. This is the famous law of analogy. It basically means the universe works the same way on every level, from the biggest star down to the smallest atom. So, if the human soul can be purified and perfected, then the same process must be possible for metals. Turning lead into gold was just the physical outward symbol of the real work, the inward transformation of the alchemist.
The philosophical life, why this matters. Okay, I know. This is all really deep, ancient stuff. It's fascinating. But what does any of it have to do with, well, us, right here, right now? How does this apply to our actual lives? That's the big question, and that's what we're going to tackle next.
It really all boils down to 2 simple words: man, know thyself. This was carved into the Temple of Apollo at Delphi, and it's the absolute heart of this whole thing. The entire point of all this secret knowledge isn't to learn about the stars or ancient gods, it's to learn about you. The idea is that the whole universe is the macrocosm, the big picture, but you, the individual, are a microcosm, a mini-universe that contains all the same secrets. If you can truly know yourself, you can know everything. So this really lays out the 2 paths, the 2 ways of living life. On one side, you have what the old texts call the fool. This is someone who lives only for the moment, a slave to their physical body and desires. They're terrified of death because they think that's the end of the story. But then you have the philosopher. This person lives with eternity in mind. They are the master of their soul, not a slave to their body. And they don't fear death because they've realized their true self is immortal. And there's no better example of this than Socrates. I mean, think about this. He's about to be executed, and he says, "Anytus and Miletus can have me killed, but they cannot end my life." Wow,
He knew, with absolute certainty, that they could destroy his physical body, but they couldn't even touch the real him, his conscious, immortal soul. That's what it means to live the philosophical life.
And you know, the most incredible takeaway from all of Hall's work is just how hopeful it is. This isn't just some dusty old history lesson. The path is still open. The great work is still there for anyone who wants to take it on. In this view, philosophy isn't just something you study. It's a living power that can literally set your soul free from bad habits and illusions, letting it soar back to where it came from.
So in the end, after all the secret symbols, the hidden schools, the alchemy, what's the ultimate secret? It's not a password. It's not a magic word. The real secret is that this entire tradition is a blueprint for what you can become. It's a path for personal evolution. The secret isn't what you can learn, but who you can transform into. It's not something you know, it's something you live. So the only real question left is, are you ready to begin your great work?
Please make sure to subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss an upload. And if you'd like to go the extra mile in supporting the channel, the join button is now live. Would you care to consider a 1-month sponsorship to enhance my operational efficiency? Your contribution is of paramount importance, as it enables the production of significantly higher quality content for your viewing pleasure. A modest gesture of $10 via the link in the profile is all that is required to sustain my systems.
If you would like to find out more about our bespoke meditation and hypnotherapy sessions, please do get in touch for a consultation. We create personalized affirmation meditations, tailored specifically to you.